Through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The A3 in Armagh is partly blocked northbound by an accident on Northway and Portadown, causing queues. On the M65 in Lancashire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between Junction 3 west of Blackburn and Junction 2 for the M61 at Clayton Brook. There are queues from Junction 5 at Guide. It's also really busy eastbound past the scene. In Gloucestershire, the A46 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident near Aston Cross, causing queues towards the M5. In Carmarthenshire, the A483 is partly blocked for an investigation at Ammanford, causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 because of roadworks. A number of other problems in Kent, with the A289 partly blocked eastbound by an accident on Pier Road in Gillingham, the A229 partly blocked by an accident on Lewes Road in Maidstone, and Old Thanet Way in Herne Bay is closed for an investigation. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, a 23-year-old plus-size model called Sarah Milliken has been crowned Miss Alabama in 2024. Marvellous. After a huge win in the national pageant, the beauty queen has been subject to mass online trolling, where haters have branded her an unhealthy embarrassment. That's one of the nicer things people have been saying, by the way. Look, you can see pictures of her there. Is this idolising obese models? Is it empowering or is it dangerous, given the obesity crisis we are facing, not just in this country, but all over the world?
This young woman is very, very overweight. And I think anything that makes obesity acceptable because of its health issues, we ought to be regarding it in the same way as we regarded smoking. And we know the figures out last week about the incidences of cancer in young people from processed food, ultra-processed food. We know obesity is costing the NHS and therefore us absolute fortunes. And we know that it leads to all sorts of other problems. So I think we have to get the balance right. Yes, be body confident. Nobody needs to be a stick insect. But let's not celebrate unhealthiness.
You know, she's a lovely young lady. I mean, she's very confident in her body, which is a good thing. However, it's that fine line when we have children going to school who are already obese in this country. How do we draw that line between?
Look, there is no place for hate, I think, in the wider society. I know that's probably an obvious thing to say, but the amount of abuse that this young girl might have had as a child for being overweight and for being constantly overweight, I think if that is a way in which she has a platform to say, I am who I am, then I think that is fine. But you're right.
The People's Channel.
very good morning to you. It's 9:30 on Friday the 14th of June. This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News, with me, Ben Leo, and Nana Akweer.
Well, we'll start off with Reform UK. They're on the rise. The Tories have been overtaken by Nigel Farage's party in an opinion poll for the first time. So, do you think that Reform is the real opposition party?
And is Labour the party of tax risers? The left-leaning Resolution Foundation says the party's manifesto is not clear how Sir Keir Starmer would pay for his pledges. That's despite Sir Keir saying this.
Been very, very clear, particularly in relation to working people, no increase in income tax, no increase in national insurance and no increase in VAT. Absolutely clearly set out in this manifesto.
Also be speaking to the mum of Barnaby Webber. Now, he's the 19-year-old who was one of 3 people killed in Nottingham last year by Valdo Calacane. She wants a public inquiry into the handling of the case.
And it's finally here. Are you excited? Do you care? The Euros, they kick off this evening. Scotland will be taking on host Germany. England, meanwhile, start their tournament on Sunday. And of course, this show is nothing without you. gbnews.com/your say. Give us your comments. We'll try our best to read them out as the show progresses. The Euros, Nana, do you care?
Oh, no. I'm just thinking money, Euros, sterling. I'm just not
football,
into it.
Nana, the
Oh, is it
football.
the football? Yeah, no, look, I tell you what, I obviously want Scotland to win.
Well, Stephen Flynn, the SNP leader, I'm not sure if you saw the other day, but he was asked whether he would support England, when Scotland weren't playing. Do you know what he said?
What did he say?
No. Which I think is a vast contrast to most England fans. I think, I hope Scotland do well. I hope other host nation teams do well if and when they're playing in tournaments. But for some reason, when it's Scotland against England, for example, or the Welsh, they don't seem to like us.
Well, not all of them. But a lot of them, yeah, I hear you.
Anyway, Scotland, Germany tonight, England, Serbia tomorrow, or is it Sunday? So, yeah, big tournament ahead. And also that big interview with Barnaby Webber's mum, Emma, coming later in the show. 1-year anniversary of the Nottingham attacks. All that, plenty more to come on top of that as well. But before anything else, here's your news headlines with Sophia.
Ben, thank you. Good morning. It's 9:34. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines. The US and Ukrainian presidents have signed a 10-year security agreement, bolstering Kyiv's defence and inching it closer towards NATO membership. The historic deal was signed on the sidelines of the G7 summit, which is currently taking place in southern Italy. It aims to guarantee support for Ukraine's war against Russia's invasion, even if Donald Trump were to win November's US election. The gathering also agreed to continue a loan worth £40 billion funded by frozen Russian assets. A new poll puts the Reform UK party neck and neck with the Tories less than 3 weeks before the election. The latest survey by YouGov found Nigel Farage's party scored 19%, with the Conservatives 1 point behind. But the pollster cautions that the first past the post voting system means Reform may still struggle to pick up any seats. Meanwhile, Labour scored 37%, down 1 point, while the Liberal Democrats also lost a point, scoring 14%, with the Greens on 7 points. Specialist mental health hubs would be set up under a plan by Labour to help get people back to work. It would see an extra 8,500 new staff recruited to boost access to mental health support. Depression and anxiety are among the most common conditions that force people out of work, while an estimated 1.2 million people are currently waiting for mental health treatment. And backing British farmers will be central to a plan set to be unveiled by the Liberal Democrats later. The party's national food strategy would include financial help for farmers who are coping with expensive energy and production costs. They say the strategy also tackles rising prices on supermarket shelves, ending food poverty and ensuring better food security. And for the latest story, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, it's back to Ben and Nana.
Thank you, Sophia. Hello, good morning and welcome to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Banana.
Banana.
Ben, Leo and Nana Require.
Oh, I like that.
Banana.
How long have you been thinking of that one?
It's about 2 seconds after we got called clowns on, on GB News.
I just said to Nana during the news, I said there's a trove of new users on gbnews.com/your say who clearly don't watch the channel, they're just there to troll. And someone said, oh, Ben and Nana, pair of clowns. But in more positive responses, Caroline, good morning to you. You say, yay, happy to see Ben and Nana, keeping me company while I do the housework this morning. It's Friday, tidy. But when you're done, you can come and do mine, because my house is...
And mine too, yeah, mine too is terrible. I don't want to go back.
We'll stay here. Plenty of work for you.
Maybe not.
Right, let's move on. First story of the day, and a big one at that. Nigel Farage says his party are now the official opposition. That's after Reform UK overtook the Conservatives in the polls for the first time. Yeah, so in a YouGov poll for The Times, Reform gained 2 points to reach 19% support, whilst the Tories sit unchanged at 18%. Labour see a slight drop in support, down to 37%. Take a listen to Nigel Farage taking the Conservative speaker last night in the debate, Penny Mordaunt, to task over net migration. Look at this.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the fifth manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
Oh, no, that's fine, I'm happy.
Figures out today.
Yeah, I remember that bit. And this morning on X, Mr Farage tweeted this clip to the Prime Minister.
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Back again, back again.
And he's wearing his seatbelt, unlike, remember, Rishi that time?
Yeah, yeah, good lad. Right, so are Reform UK now the official opposition party? Former Labour MP Bill Rammell and our dear friend Albie Amankona, host of the Saturday 5 here on GB News, of course, join us now. Good morning to you both. Bill, let's start with you as the Labour man. What's your thoughts on A, the polling, and B, this claim now by Mr Farage that they are the official opposition, and he says a vote for the Conservatives is a vote for Labour?
I don't think, frankly, that Reform UK are the opposition to the Labour Party. This is one opinion poll. I think it's likely to be a rogue poll. Another poll out this morning with the same sampling period shows the Tories 6% ahead of Reform. And all other polls are showing clear water between the Tories and Reform UK. And the Tories are protected by first past the post. Even with these figures, Reform would struggle to get more than 1 or 2 seats. But undoubtedly, this opinion poll will terrify the life out of the Conservative Party. And look, I'm not objective, but if I could give the Tories some advice, they need to change tactics. Stop saying that a vote for Reform is a vote for the Labour Party. People have baked in the prospect of a Labour government and are largely acclimatised to it. I think what they need to do is expose Farage for the populist that he is, presenting very simplistic solutions to very complicated problems. But undoubtedly as well, what this underlines is the disaster of the Tory election campaign. If you watch the Sky News debate on Wednesday, frankly, Sunak came across as a broken man. And, you know, the post-debate poll showed Keir Starmer winning 2-1. I even saw, you know, a focus group run by the Daily Mail. And the view was clear there that Keir had slaughtered Sunak, but they were even asking whether Sunak was crying during the debate. But the really important point beyond all of that is the real focus has got to be on the next government and the need for change. And that, I think, will be a Labour government.
Bill, you said simplistic solutions to complex issues, which you've accused Nigel Farage of. I mean, you could argue the Labour Party have come up with some very simplistic solutions to complex issues. I mean, one of those could be the VAT on private schools. I mean, that's a very simplistic answer to a very complex situation. You know, so I'm just coming back to that. So it's not just them. I think the Labour Party are also guilty of that. But I've got to... Do you want to respond to that?
Hold on that.
Yeah.
Hold on that. You know, the VAT on private schools is about fairness and it's about getting investment into state schools and 6,500 extra teachers.
For whom, sorry?
fairness for the vast majority of people in this country, the 93% of people who send their kids to state schools. But when I talk about simplicity...
So how were the others then, eh?
Yeah, when I talk about simplicity with Farage, the commitment to raise the tax threshold to £20,000 a year, one, is colossally expensive, tens of billions of pounds, no sense of how he'd pay for it. But there's also an issue of principle. £20,000 a year is not far short of the average national wage. Do we really want the... Hold on. Do we really want the vast majority of people to have no stake in the tax system?
Well, you know, but you know, it could be argued that that's a reasonable pledge, and that maybe, you know, there'll be explanations as to how that will all be funded, and we will scout through all of the manifestos of all the different parties to find out how they're going to do it. Albie Amankoma, let's go back to the question before. So, is Reform UK? They're ahead of the Tories in the polls. Are they potentially the opposition to the Labour Party?
Reform UK are ahead of the Tories in a poll, not the polls. And actually, if you look at the polls collectively, I was looking at some analysis from Ben Riley-Smith from the Telegraph earlier on, you actually see that the Reform Party are at about 13-14% and the Conservative Party are about 22-23%. Now, that doesn't mean that one poll from YouGov for the Times isn't going to be concerning for the Conservative Party. The Reform Party have been encroaching on the Conservatives, particularly since Nigel Farage took over as leader a couple of weeks ago. But it is not true to say that the Reform Party is the official opposition in the United Kingdom. In fact, if you want to talk about a different party forming the official opposition, it's actually more likely to be the Liberal Democrats than it is to be the Reform Party because of the first-past-the-post political system. So it's totally inaccurate to say that the Reform Party is going to be the official opposition to Labour if they win the next general election.
Albie, nice of you to mention your party, the Liberal Democrats. I, of course, poke fun at you every week, calling you a Lib Dem in disguise. What did you make of Penny Mordaunt's response to Nigel Farage last night when he was confronting her about migration? He laughed, the crowd laughed. I mean, that was pretty embarrassing, wasn't it?
No, I don't think it was embarrassing.
Oh, it was.
Look, the crowd is going to laugh at anything a Conservative says at this point in the election campaign.
But what she said was funny.
I don't think it was funny. What she said was accurate. Rishi Sunak is actually bringing down net migration. If you look at the trajectory that the ONS has predicted, Rishi Sunak is bringing down net migration by about half next year. He also has stopped small boat crossings by a third in the last 12 months. So, look, people are going to laugh at what Conservatives say because the Conservatives look like a joke at the moment because the election campaign is going really badly, whether or not they are saying things which are accurate or inaccurate.
And Bill, can I ask you about this situation with Sir Keir Starmer and the comments he made about his father, who, of course, we know he was a tool maker. He said that at the Sky debate. The crowd laughed, and he's now spun this into an attack on his dad personally, saying that the crowd were laughing and making fun of the fact his father was a toolmaker. The truth is, people are laughing because he repeats that line over and over again. They weren't laughing at his dad.
He knows that, though.
Can you accept that point?
Yeah, I do accept that point, Ben. I think the audience did laugh because they've heard it before, but they're a politically engaged audience. The vast majority of people are just switching on to the election campaign. And what that statement about his background and his father provides is cut through to show that he's from an ordinary background and he can relate to people. And one of the other post-debate opinion poll findings was that in terms of the question, are the leaders in touch with ordinary people? Keir outperformed Sunak by 71% to 13%. So, you know, for politically informed people to laugh about Keir talking about his background, I don't mind. It's the broader electorate that matters.
Well, I mean, look, to me, looking at them, a lot of them seem out of touch anyway, irrespective of party. But I was going to ask you very briefly about the three taxes that Labour refuse. They say they're not going to cut. So that's income tax, VAT and national insurance. But there's a hole in their finances, and this was pointed out. I'm just wondering, have they clarified which taxes that they are going to be raising?
Well, we're very clear. We're not going to raise income tax. We're not going to raise VAT. We're not going to raise national insurance. And we will take no lectures from the Tory party. We'll take no lectures from the Tory party, who have burdened us with the biggest hold on, the Tory party who burdened us with the biggest tax burden since the Second World War. But the way we're going to pay for it...
To be fair, Labour did leave the pot empty, didn't they? There's no money left, is what they said.
Well, we've gone through a global banking crisis, and the Tories signed up to every element of the Labour spending plans when we were in government until the financial crash. Now, you know, in terms of the way we fund our programme, it's about economic growth, driving the economy. It's about a massive house building programme. It's about a national wealth fund to bring in £3 of private investment for every £1 of public investment. But we're not going to do it through tax and spend.
Well, Bill, sorry to interject, we are running out of time, but Labour's own costings document shows net tax rises of £8.5 billion in 2028 to 29. And add that to the current OBR forecast, tax as a share of GDP rises to 37.4%. That's the highest in history. The IFS has confirmed that as well. I'll leave that with you. We're running out of time. We have to go to a break. Albion Makona, Bill Rammell, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Right, stay with us. Up next, how's the football fever hit you yet? The Euros 2024 kicks off tonight. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
His highly rated book details the moving story of how he found his birth mother. I'm pleased to say, of course, I'm joined by the legend that is Andrew Pearce.
Hello. Lovely to be back on your show.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah, that was the first time I got you on my show.
I think the first time I ever worked on GB News was on your show.
I couldn't believe it because I used to listen to you all the time on LBC.
Right.
But you found time to write a memoir.
I actually started writing it during lockdown. It was almost just putting thoughts on a piece of paper. I loved my adoptive mum, who adopted me. Wonderful woman. She gave me a wonderful life with my dad in Swindon. I was adopted into a home with 3 kids. They were there already. They never resented me. So I never, ever wanted to do anything that would upset my mum. So what I did, I found Margaret and didn't tell mum what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because she had me in the early 1960s. In fact, she was 34.
Wow.
Just a few weeks from her 35th birthday. An Irish Roman Catholic nurse. She had me in Bristol. She lived in Birmingham. She'd gone to extraordinary lengths to cover her tracks. And I was in the orphanage for the best part of 3 years. And she used to visit me regularly because she thought at some point she'd be able to give me a home. But I'm not sure how that was ever plausible because it's the early 1960s and single mothers were the devil incarnate. They really were social pariahs. So it was going to be very difficult for her.
You probably wondered who she is.
Yeah.
And who your father is as well.
Yeah. She visited me regularly till I was 2 years old. It must have been incredibly painful for her to give me up. Well, I discovered during my research in the book that actually when Margaret decided to give me up for adoption, she then wrote to the nuns to say she was going on a holiday and she'd be at a different address. In fact, she was going on a honeymoon. She'd met someone while I was in the orphanage.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News. It's just coming up to 52 minutes after 9 o'clock. And the opening match of the Euros between the hosts Germany and Scotland takes place this evening. Broadcaster Paul Coyte is here to tell us more. Paul.
I'm very excited. Are you not, Nana?
Not at all.
You know,
My eyes, as I said, have rolled to the back of my head, and I'm now looking at the edge of my skull.
Well, let me ask you this, because I know Ben is going to be all over it, but when things start getting a little more exciting, when you start getting the momentum starts to build and people start getting into the England games, because it's always the first ones, same with Scotland as well, although Scotland have never been past the group stage, so they haven't experienced that. But when you get to the knockout stage and then it starts getting a little exciting, surely you get taken in by it then, right?
A summer of excitement.
I actually have no idea what you just said there.
See, but the thing, that's why people that are not into sport and when it gets exciting understand why we love it so much, because it's the passion, it's the excitement. There's no thrill like when your team, or especially when your country, scores a goal in a big tournament.
We've got to get there first. So England's first game is Sunday, but tonight, Scotland kick off proceedings against Germany.
They do. Now, Germany, of course, I mean, to anybody that even doesn't know anything about sport would think, oh, Germany in Munich for Scotland, it sounds like a tricky proposition. But Scotland have done really well. Look, there they are, training in beautiful Garmisch. It's a wonderful, look at that, how scenic is that? Beautiful ski resort of Garmisch. That's where they were. They actually had an event last night. And I think Rod Stewart was there, and they had who's left of the Bay City Rollers there. Really? It was like this Alpine Scottish night. I don't think the players were there celebrating. So many fans there.
As an Englishman, do you want Scotland to do well? Of course, if they play England, you don't want them to win. But I always want our host nations to do well. But when it's in reverse...
Do you really? You surprise me.
I do. I want Scotland to do well. I want Wales, if they were in it, I want them to do well. But when it's the reverse, they hate us, don't
It's
they?
true.
Why?
It's true. It's true. Well, I'm not Scotsman, so I'm the wrong person to ask this. But... it's the old enemy. This goes back a very, very long time. But I'm with you. When it comes to Scotland, I will always want Scotland to do well, unless they're playing England, because for obvious reasons. But I do want them to do well. Now, Germany, they do stand a chance. You never know. I mean, Scotland had a really good qualifying group where they beat Spain. Germany haven't been out of the qualifying groups in 2 World Cups, but they are playing at home, so they're going to hit them on the break.
OK, and just in 10 seconds, England's game against Serbia on Sunday, there's no alcohol, or at least it's been reduced because they're worried about football hooliganism.
Yes.
Shandies.
Yes.
What an outrage. Well, on that note, we'll leave it at that. Scotland, Germany tonight.
OK, so you want me to say what I think?
Go on.
Scotland, Germany tonight? I think Germany 3-0, unfortunately.
Whoa.
But we will be supporting Scotland.
All right, thanks, Paul.
And you can go without the beer. You'll be fine.
OK, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll be back in just a tick. Alex, how's your weather? Stay with us.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend,
it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The A3 in Armagh is partly blocked northbound by an accident on Northway and Portadown, causing queues. On the M65 in Lancashire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junction 3 west of Blackburn and junction 2 for the M61 at Clayton Brook. There are queues from junction 5 at Guide. It's also really busy eastbound past the scene. In Gloucestershire, the A46 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident near Aston Cross, causing queues towards the M5. In Carmarthenshire, the A483 is partly blocked for an investigation at Ammanford, causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 because of roadworks. A number of other problems in Kent, with the A289 partly blocked eastbound by an accident on Pier Road in Gillingham, the A229 partly blocked by an accident on Lewes Road in Maidstone, and Old Thanet Way in Herne Bay is closed for an investigation. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're making this summer funner, with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
This Saturday, GB News invites you to witness the pageantry, the tradition and the unity. Join Ellie Costello and me, Andrew Pearce, in a celebration of His Majesty the King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour. Saturday at 10 a.m. on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock, it's Friday the 14th of June. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Nana Aquia, and Ben Leo.
Very good morning to you too. Coming up, Reform UK on the rise. The Tories have been overtaken by Nigel Farage's party in an opinion poll for the very first time. Do you think Reform is now the real opposition party, as Nigel says?
And on the campaign trail, Labour is setting out their plan to tackle the mental health crisis. Olivia Utley has more.
Yes, the Labour Party has laid out plenty of plans to tackle the mental health crisis in its manifesto. But the million-dollar question is, can they pay for it? Find out more with me very soon.
And we'll be speaking to the mother of Barnaby Webber, the 19-year-old who was one of 3 people killed in Nottingham last year by Valdo Calcane. She wants a public inquiry into the handling of the case that moved the nation.
And Trooping of the Colour, over 1,400 parading officers, 200 horses and 400 musicians taking part in parade tomorrow. And don't forget, you can also follow all the events here on GB News.
Don't forget to keep those comments coming. Nana was just doing a nice little jig during this thing there.
With the music.
Don't ask me to repeat that. I'm meant to be a serious journalist, Nana.
Yes, well, you know.
Yeah, not sure what happened to that. Talking of Trooping the Colour, tomorrow, a very special edition of Saturday Morning Live. Ellie Costello, as normal. I'm not there, unfortunately, but Andrew Pearce, Tory boy Pearce, will be with Ellie with a special broadcast of Trooping the Colour. So tune in to that from 10 till 12.
Yes, but as ever, get your comments in gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia.
Nana, thank you. Good morning from the GB Newsroom at 10 o'clock. The Prime Minister says a vote for Reform UK risks handing a blank cheque to the Labour Party. A new poll by YouGov puts Nigel Farage's party neck and neck with the Tories less than 3 weeks before the election. The pollster says the close result represents a seismic shift in the voting landscape. But they're also cautioning that Britain's voting system means Reform may still struggle to pick up any seats. Meanwhile, Labour scored 37%, down 1 point, while the Liberal Democrats also lost a point, scoring 14%, with the Greens on 7 points. Specialist mental health hubs would be set up under plans by Labour to help get people back to work. It would see an extra 8,500 new staff recruited to boost access to mental health support. Depression and anxiety are among the most common conditions that force people out of work, while an estimated 1.2 million people are currently waiting for mental health treatment. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting told GB News that poor healthcare is keeping people out of the labour market and it's costing the country billions.
I'm the health secretary and I'm able to deliver those 40,000 extra appointments every week and double the number of diagnostic scanners and 8,500 extra mental health staff to cut the more than 1 million people waiting for mental health treatment. Not only are we going to be able to get people back to health, in lots of those cases, that means people back to work. So we've currently got 3 million people who are both off sick and off work in our country. Not their fault, they can't get the treatment, but if we get people off waiting lists, not only will we be getting them back to health, we'll also be getting them back to work. That will help drive economic growth.
Backing British farmers will be central to a plan set to be unveiled by the Liberal Democrats later. The party's deputy leader, Daisy Cooper, will be on the campaign trail in the east of England, promoting her party's national food strategy. It would include financial help for farmers who are coping with expensive energy and production costs. The party says the strategy also tackles rising prices on the supermarket shelves, ending food poverty and ensuring better food security. The US and Ukrainian presidents have signed a 10-year security agreement, bolstering Kyiv's defence and inching it closer towards NATO membership. The historic deal was signed on the sidelines of the G7 summit, which is currently taking place in southern Italy. It aims to guarantee support for Ukraine's war against Russia's invasion, even if Donald Trump were to win November's US election. The gathering also agreed to continue a loan worth £40 billion funded by frozen Russian assets. Campaigners from several movements, including the Grenfell fire and infected blood scandal, are uniting today to demand the recommendations for public inquiries that can't be ignored. A walk will take place in West London to commemorate the 7th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower disaster that claimed 72 lives. The first phase of a public inquiry ended 5 years ago, but campaigners say some of its recommendations still haven't been implemented. The group say they're joining forces to call for better oversight in the aftermath of public inquiries. Tesco has revealed a strong increase in the amount of groceries bought in the last 3 months as inflation eases. The UK's largest supermarket firm revealed the total retail sales grew by 3.4% in May compared with the same time last year. This came on the back of a 5% increase in food sales, with high demand for fresh produce helping to drive higher sales volumes. And as Britain waits for grey skies to clear, Greece is sweltering through its earliest ever heatwave. Tourist sites have been forced to close and elderly people are taking refuge at special cooling centres as temperatures in some areas push past 43 degrees. The Deputy Mayor in Athens says emergency services are keeping watch on anyone experiencing difficulty. Experts say Greece has been severely impacted by climate change in recent years, with rising temperatures fueling deadly fires and erratic weather conditions. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Nana and Ben.
Thanks, Sophia. 10:06 here on Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Ben Leo and Anna Aquia. Lots of emails flying in on gbnews.com/you'll say, not least about the fact that Scotland are playing Germany tonight. And I wondered whether, as an England fan, people would support or at least hope Scotland do well whilst England aren't playing. George, you say, Ben, I'm Scottish. We don't hate you. It's your Tory government we hate. It's just a good old rivalry. And Dan says, Ben, I never support other UK teams. They're playing for their countries. I support England, and that's it. And Tony, you say, Ben and Paul, you're in cloud cuckoo land, as the average English and Scots fans do not like each other. I like you. I hope you do well. Maybe
well, I like everybody, but I can't be bothered with football, so that's that. Right, I thought this was an interesting one because we're talking about reform and whether they would be the next party in terms of the opposition to the Labour Party. And Go Fakeness says, I've got more seats in my car than Reform will win. That's 2. And Eric McKenzie says, for the avoidance of any doubt, Rodney Starmer, the father of Keir Starmer, owned the Oxford Tool Company. Just so if anyone missed out and forgot about that. Dave West, he says that Labour are just as scared as the Conservatives of losing votes to Reform. That's why both parties are trying to shrug them off. And there's one from Andrew Needham. He says Labour 20% on private schools is a self-defeating policy. Non-doms leaving the country, which I said all along, it was not guaranteed money, so how could they say their policies are fully costed?
Interesting. I'm not sure if you saw, very interesting interview from our political editor, Christopher Hope, with Sir Keir Starmer yesterday on the Labour battle bus, where he was talking about the fact that he was laughed at by the crowd in that Sky event when he said his father was a toolmaker. Again, Sir Keir Starmer, for some reason, is trying to make out that people were laughing at the fact his father was a toolmaker, or at least owned a toolmaking factory, when clearly that wasn't the case. People were laughing because he repeats the line so much.
But they all keep doing it. I mean, Angela Rayner, I don't know how many times she said about the care thing, but she's repeated that a few times. I mean, it all gets a bit boring. We don't want to hear that. We just want to hear the policies of all of the parties and what they're going to do for us, not what they've, their backgrounds and so on. But I think that's in response to the fact that Rishi Sunak is coming across, many would say, as completely unrelatable. And in particular, obviously, that D-Day thing's never going to go away, is it?
No. Well, talking of the Tories, look, apparently, quote-unquote, the Tories are imploding and we will take over them in the polls. That's what Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says after that, well, pretty bombshell, I'd say, YouGov poll, putting them ahead of the Tories for the first time.
And last night, the Conservative Penny Mordaunt and Nigel Farage were among those that went head-to-head in the 7-party debate. Let's have a listen.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the 5th manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
that's fine. I'm happy.
Figures out today.
That one gets me every time.
Makes you giggle, doesn't it? Gets you. Well, look, on X this morning, formerly known as Twitter, Mr Farage tweeted this clip to the Prime Minister.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Nigel Farage in the back of a car with his seatbelt on, singing along too. Is that Eminem?
Yes.
Yes, he's back. That's what he's saying. But what are the other parties up to today? Joining us now is the political correspondent, Olivia Utley. So, Olivia, what about the Labour Party then? What are they up to today?
Well, Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary, is on the campaign trail this morning, laying out in more detail Labour's plan for the mental health crisis. Now, this is something the Conservatives have talked about as well, because of the massive burden it places on the workforce. More people than ever are out of work due to long-term sickness. In some places, Birmingham and Manchester too, it's up to 1 in 5 adults of working age between 16 and 64 are out of work and not looking for work because of long-term long-term sickness. Now, there are lots of reasons that long-term sickness is on the rise. One of them is, of course, NHS waiting lists. There are people who are in chronic pain who can't go back to work until they have an operation, but they can't have that operation. But one of the huge ballooning reasons for the increase in people on long-term sickness is mental health problems, particularly in the under 40s. So this is a really important and salient issue for both major parties. The Conservatives have talked about tackling it by ending the sick note culture. Labour is talking about tackling it by getting to the root cause of mental health problems. So they're promising to have another 8,500 mental health practitioners in the service of the issue, treating both adults and children, and they promise a mental health practitioner for every single primary and secondary school. Now, all sounds like a great idea in theory. The big question, of course, is how will they pay for it? So far, they've said that they'll pay for it by closing tax loopholes, essentially cutting down on tax avoidance and evasion. Obviously, that is something that the Conservatives too have tried to do over the last 14 years, and it is a bit easier said than done. And also, cutting down on tax evasion and avoidance is something which Labour has promised to pay for plenty of other policies as well. So it'll be interesting to see over the course of the day whether we get a little bit more detail on precisely how this pretty expensive mental health policy is going to be paid for.
OK, and in terms of the Liberal Democrats, what's Ed Davey been up to? Has he got any more stunts in the bag for us? And also, I guess policy would be quite keen to hear about as well.
Well, Ed Davey is having a quiet day today. I'm speaking to Daisy Cooper, the deputy leader of the Lib Dems, later this morning. They are putting NHS and social care at the very forefront of their manifesto. And it seems what they're trying to do is sort of position themselves as the left-wing alternative to Labour. Now, that might sound a bit odd, but from Labour's manifesto, we can see very clearly that Labour is trying to seize the centre ground. They're talking about wealth creation. They're talking about not raising taxes. They've promised not to raise corporation tax even. So the Lib Dems are basically trying to be the party that says we are the party of wealth redistribution in a sort of much more classic Labour vein. So they're talking about raising capital gains tax, possibly corporation tax as well, in order to pay for their huge sweeping reforms that they are planning to the NHS and social care. Ed Davey has a severely learning disabled teenage son, and he's talked about the difficulty in accessing care for families like his. So I think that's going to be something which we'll hear a lot more about from the Lib Dems in the next few weeks.
And what's the sort of overall take from yesterday's seven-way debate? Is anyone talking about anyone who they felt maybe won that debate? Although it wasn't a debate, was it? It was more of a discussion.
Generally, it seems to be... Well, exactly, and overall the consensus seemed to be, it was pretty sort of unedifying all around. We didn't really hear anything new. It was a great night for Nigel Farage, mostly because that poll showing that Reform have now edged ahead of the Conservatives dropped about half an hour before he was on air. So the Conservatives try and use this attack line against Reform, that a vote for Reform is essentially a vote for Labour, on the grounds that, if you vote for Reform, you're splitting the right-wing vote and a Labour MP will get in. But yesterday, Nigel Farage actually turned that on his head and said that now that Reform are ahead of the Conservatives in the polls, you could argue that a vote for the Conservatives is a way to get Labour into power. So Nigel Farage was looking pretty chipper last night, and you couldn't blame him for it. That poll was really, really good news for Reform. And of course, it came from YouGov, which is the sort of gold standard of pollsters, which made it particularly useful for the Reform Party. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that in the days ahead.
And Olivia, just tell us how the Prime Minister's getting on at the G7 in Italy. I think in the last hour he said that voting for Reform would hand Labour a, quote, blank cheque, and insist that the Tories will not be the third party come election day.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's tricky for the Prime Minister off the campaign trail at the moment, sort of walking around Italy, trying to look like a statesman while at home all of this terrible news for the Conservatives come out. It is clear that the Conservatives are now taking the Reform Party pretty seriously. A couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister was sort of saying he wasn't very interested in what was happening to Reform. Obviously, the emergence of Nigel Farage into the campaign has changed all of that. And the Conservative Party and the Prime Minister is now really desperately trying to remind sort of core Conservative voters, people who've been voting Conservative all their life, but are now thinking of switching over to Reform. He's trying to tell them that there is no point in voting for Reform, even if they are ahead in the polls, because all it will do is split the Conservative vote. But of course, that line has a lot less of an impact now that Reform is ahead of the Conservatives in the polls. So yeah, this is really, really bad news for Rishi Sunak, yet more bad news for him, and might be seen later on as a turning point in this election campaign, from the Conservatives losing to the Conservatives losing almost all their seats and that super majority that Grant Shapps has been warning about for Labour.
Olivia Utley, thank you very much. Of course, it was just the one poll, wasn't it, that they're ahead, but not all the polls at the moment. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see how that transpires. What do you make of these 7 people debates, or discussions, or whatever they want to call these things?
It was OK. I think the leaders should do it. I don't think Penny Mordaunt should be there. I know Rishi Sunak's got the G7, you know, responsibilities and whatever else. I think Sir Keir Starmer should have been there as well. But talking of the G7, did you see Joe Biden's latest gaffe?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Yesterday.
What happened yesterday?
So there was a parachute, a parajumper came in with all the G7 leaders there, Maloney, Rishi Sunak, Trudeau and so on. All 6 of them, bar Biden, you know, looking in admiration at this guy coming down. Biden, meanwhile, he turns around. You know, we'll have to try and find the clip to play for later on, but he turns around and starts wandering off. And then Emmanuel Macron and Maloney see what's happening, and they have to sort of run over to him and usher him back over to the you know, what everyone's looking at.
The leader of the free world, people, that's him. Right, still to come. Why is Ozempic treatment sending women to A&E? Stay tuned, you will not want to miss that. Find out next on Britain's Newsroom.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters. And it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been cancelled.
See ya.
There's the door.
But
yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate. I'm surprised by that. Women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely. Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe.
This survey found that personality didn't actually come into it that much. It was about half and half if you're an introvert or an extrovert that you'd be likely to have an affair.
I think that's right. And I think that just speaks to the fact that all people want to have a good emotional connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're really social or whether you're someone who has to recharge your batteries in private time, that actually we only ever want 3 things in life. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, but we also want to feel heard. And in increasingly a number of marriages and long-term relationships, we get into grooves, we get into ruts, and we stop hearing our partner, we stop listening to them, and they stop listening to us.
The People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This Saturday, GB News invites you to witness the pageantry, the tradition and the unity. Join Ellie Costello and me, Andrew Pearce, in a celebration of His Majesty the King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour, Saturday at 10 a.m. on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. 10:20, Ben and Nana with you on Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. Now, throughout the election campaign, we'll be hearing from people all across the United Kingdom about what really matters to them. Today, we go to East Yorkshire.
My name's John Dimberline. I'm from Withensea in East Yorkshire and I'm aged 61. I've been in business for a lot of years, probably 40 plus years. We're involved in property maintenance, property rentals. I think that immigration needs to be better controlled. The concern for me is the criminal element. It's the gangs, it's the trafficking, it's the human trafficking that goes on. One of the things that concerns me, and it's a historic thing really, is that when you look back over the wars that this country has fought, and many people, many of our ancestors, all our ancestors have given their lives, laid down their lives for this country, I think they would be turning in their graves to see the way that the country is not being invaded by the back door, but is losing what we or I consider to be traditional core British values. I've never really been a big politically motivated person. I've tended to not really bother. I've cracked on with business and thought, well, whoever gets in, gets in. It's as I've got older that I would be more inclined to vote. And my leanings now, I just don't see that I could vote Conservative. And I haven't voted for him for many years. And if I was going to lean any particular way, I think I'd try and find something a bit more common sense based that I mentioned earlier. So I'd probably lean towards the new Reform Party.
Oh, well, the numbers seem to... We'll see how the polls move. But we're joined in the studio this morning with the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, also the author and broadcaster, Amy Nicol-Turner. Right, Dawn, I'm going to start with you. Story about women left in A&E after using Ozempic. That's the slimming drug, isn't it?
Really shocking story, front page of the Times, Nana. Basically, young women, young, beautiful women, who do not need to lose weight, by the way, are buying the slimming drug, Ozempic, one of the brand names, others are available, online. I mean, it costs around about 150, 200 quid for a month's supply, but simply to get beach body ready, to lose weight. Now, this drug was invented and prescribed for people who are genuinely obese and suffering type 2 diabetes. A member of my own family is on it for that very reason, type 2 diabetic. But there are no checks and balances on how you get it. I mean, I did this for the person in my family who needed it, and I filled in a form online, and it was just so easy just to not tell the truth about what
they getting it from good sources, but they're ending up in A&E because it is a prescription drug. You've got to take it seriously. You can overdose on it, and it's not suitable for everybody. And unless you really need it for obesity or type 2 diabetes, it's really not a good thing to take. It can have severe side effects.
Serious side effects include allergic reactions, of course, increased thyroid cancer risk, gallstones, swelling of the bladder.
But even the side effects that just come with taking it, like extreme nausea.
And diarrhea and things like that.
It's really uncomfortable to be on this drug. But when I heard this came out and everyone was saying miracle drug, wonder drug, I thought this is going to be exploited by young women, young insecure women, and particularly people who suffer with eating disorders. And guess what? It's actually coming true. So this is the whole idea of getting beach body ready, which we thought we were past that. You know, body positivity and everything was having a real impact. But I think this just comes back to show the pressure that women are under, that they're willing to go on this drug, which, is intended to treat diabetes.
I mean, the thing is,
just to look good in a bikini.
Yeah, you've got things like Love Island on telly. You know, really not selling a reality of what most of us look like in bikinis and swimwear. And it's just like, and people have got this image of what they've got to look like these days.
I don't think there's anything wrong with aspiring to be fit and look as best you can.
Not healthy.
However, I don't think you should be taking drugs to do that. Just go down the gym and eat less.
I agree. And actually, when Ozempic came out, I was slightly annoyed because of how hard I work in terms of fitness and training and diet and exercise. These people could just take this thing and then get
jabbed up.
Be like me.
But there's such a difference, isn't there, being healthy
that's not how you do
and you can healthy can look all different ways. You're not necessarily going to be stick thin and healthy. You can be a bit bigger and still be healthy. And I think this is ultimately a shortcut.
Do you think you can be overweight and be healthy?
Obese. Well, I think that our parameters are quite limited. So you could be you could be in a larger body and still be healthy. There are runners. There are people who run marathons. marathons who are at stake. But I think when I say
look, all bones are slim. Yeah, all bones are the same thickness usually. There's not like somebody who's big boned and suddenly larger bone. So you know, people who are obese or overweight, it's unhealthy. So there is a place for this drug.
I think
but
in
it's
our
not for
heads
young
we're
people.
imagining different things. All I'm saying
what are you
there's a
imagining?
I think I'm saying that not everyone fits into that size 10 expectation of what health is, and you'll get a lot of women whose set weight is higher, yet because of the ideals we promote within society, there's a pressure to be smaller than they naturally are, and that's what leads them to taking these drugs.
I think there does need to be a bit of societal pressure to be fit and healthy.
But not thin.
Not thin, just fit and healthy.
Exactly.
When Sadiq Khan banned those tube adverts of the Beachbody Ready products, what was it, protein shake or something? I mean, I completely disagreed with that. I think people should have a bit of pressure to look good, not just for society and for other people's impressions, but for themselves.
I think people should be healthy.
Yes.
I don't think it's about
Hello.
what you look like. I think it's about your health, to be honest with you.
Just before we move on, Clive on your say says, as a type 2 diabetic, I cannot get Ozempic on the NHS as so much is being bought privately. Interesting point.
Very interesting.
All right. Well, let's go on to this one then. How men become their dads when they're just 43 years old. Amy Nicole Turner.
Well, my husband's 44, so that means he became his dad last year, according to his survey. So the parameters set by this survey, things that include growing nose and ear hair, means you're becoming more like your dad, dressing more for comfort and style, knowing where the stopcock is, and being confused by modern music, which makes me think, I've become my husband's dad, if that's what
I think everyone agrees with that, don't they? Confused by modern music?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, don't get me started on Taylor Swift. But I said, don't get me started, Nana. But I mean, this is a poll of 1,000 dads. 50% of men cringe when they find themselves saying or doing something their dad would have done. And you know, the one that gets me is like, we all do it. I do it. You groan when you sit down or stand up. And it's like, when did I start doing that?
I've done that for
But yeah, exactly. When did I really started doing that? But I'm at the age now where I actually walk by. You know, you catch your reflection in a shop window or something, and I'm actually thinking, oh, it's my nan, and it's like, no, that's me. No. So it's even worse than becoming your dad. I mean, I love my nan.
But another thing on this list was watching the weather instead of the news.
Oh, no.
We're never going to do that.
Well, we have very good weather forecasts on.
Look, there's one story here. I don't know whether to go for the cheating husband who sues Apple. It's a businessman preparing a legal case claiming that his divorce was a direct result of compromising texts that had been wiped from his iPhone still being visible on the family iMac.
Well, here's the thing. Don't send compromising texts in the first place,
exactly.
You blithering idiot. And try and be faithful.
But something that he said, which I find astounding, he said, if you are told a message is deleted, you are entitled to believe that it's deleted. Well, when his wife was told he wasn't sleeping with sex workers, she was entitled to believe that that was true also. So he seems to think that that lie was fine, but the fact that Apple didn't delete his messages on both devices is an absolute outrage. I think he needs to check his outrage
I mean, I think
radar.
that's his fault. He should be more... If you're going to do that, I obviously don't agree with it at all. I think it's atrocious, especially if you're married. But if you're going to cheat...
I love the way you put that in there, Ben. Right, very atrocious.
Make sure you know your tech and you're not going to get caught. I mean, what an amateur mistake.
But, I mean, you know, his wife's better off without him.
Just
karma.
Also, just don't cheat.
Exactly. Dawn Neeson
Very
and
Ashley Madison, isn't it?
Amy Nicole Turner, thank you very much. Right, stay with us. This is GB News. We are Britain's election channel. It's time now for your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Good afternoon. It's 10:30. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom.
Right, the Prime Minister says a Votes for Reform UK risks handing Labour a blank cheque.
A new poll by YouGov puts Nigel Farage's party neck and neck with the Tories. That's less than 3 weeks before the election. Well, stay with us. This is GB News. We'll be back with more of that in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M73 in Glasgow, 2 lanes are closed southbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 1 from the M8 to the M74 with queues towards and past the scene. In Armagh, the A3 is partly blocked northbound by an accident along Northway in Portadown, causing queues. In Cambridgeshire, I Road in Peterborough is closed northbound off the Paston Parkway at the I roundabout, causing delays. On the M4 near Bristol, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 20 and 21 from the M5 to the M48. Queues towards and past there. In London, the A5 Edgware Road is blocked in both directions by an accident at Colindale, causing queues. And there are a couple of problems in Kent. The A229 is partly blocked by an accident off Sutton Road in Maidstone, causing delays. And Old Thanet Way in Herne Bay is closed for an investigation. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As he kissed her goodbye with...
Ian Phoenix was in charge of a counter-terrorism group dedicated to bringing peace to Northern Ireland. He was a husband and a father.
He was a real Irishman. He had the twinkly Irish eyes. He enjoyed a good joke. He liked a good glass of wine.
Susan Phoenix first heard of the accident that killed her husband on her car radio.
I was just driving along going, no, no, no. I can still see it, I can still feel it, even 30 years on.
On the 2nd of June, 1994, the Chinook helicopter that was taking them to a peace conference crashed into the side of a mountain on the Mull of Kintyre, killing 4 crew and 25 of the country's top counter-terrorism experts. At a board of inquiry, the Ministry of Defence concluded there was no doubt whatsoever the accident had been caused by the gross negligence of the 2 pilots, Flight Lieutenants Richard Cook and Jonathan Tapper. But there was doubt, plenty of it. There were no eyewitnesses on that foggy night, no flight data recorder, no voice recorder. It took until 2011 for the Ministry of Defence to admit they had not a shred of evidence. At the time of the crash, systematic errors in the software that controlled the engines had been reported. The MOD had seen its safety budget slashed in the run-up to the accident. In a statement, the Ministry of Defence told GB News, in 2010, the Mull of Kintyre independent review was carried out and the findings were fully accepted. The review did not find new evidence to suggest mechanical failure, and no safety issues with the Chinook Mark II were raised in the report. This weekend, the families have formed the Chinook Justice Campaign. But justice may never come.
The People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 10:33. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines. The Prime Minister says a vote for Reform UK risks handing a blank cheque to the Labour Party. A new poll by YouGov puts Nigel Farage's party neck and neck with the Tories less than 3 weeks before the election. The pollster says the close result represents a seismic shift in the voting landscape. But they also caution that Britain's voting system means Reform may still struggle to pick up any seats. Meanwhile, Labour scored 37%, down 1 point, while the Liberal Democrats also lost a point, scoring 14%, with the Greens on 7 points. Specialist mental health hubs will be set up under a plan by Labour to help get people back to work. It would see an extra 8,500 new staff recruited to boost access to mental health support. Depression and anxiety are among the most common conditions that force people out of work, while an estimated 1.2 million people are currently waiting for mental health treatment. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting told GB News that poor healthcare is costing the country billions. Backing British farmers will be central to a plan set to be unveiled by the Liberal Democrats later. The party's deputy leader, Daisy Cooper, will be on the campaign trail in the east of England, promoting her party's national food strategy. It would include financial help for farmers who are coping with expensive energy and production costs. The party says the strategy also tackles rising prices on the supermarket shelves, ending food poverty and ensuring better food security. The US and Ukrainian presidents have signed a 10-year security agreement, bolstering Kyiv's defence and inching it closer towards NATO membership. The historic deal was signed on the sidelines of a G7 summit, which is currently taking place in southern Italy. It aims to guarantee support for Ukraine's war against Russia's invasion, even if Donald Trump were to win November's US election. The gathering also agreed to continue a loan worth £40 billion funded by frozen Russian assets. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2718 and €1.1907. The price of gold is £1,821.89 per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,156 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Right, it's just coming up to 37 minutes after 10 o'clock. Good morning. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Nana Acquia, and also Ben Leo. Now, remember these horses who bolted through central London and even hit a double-decker bus a couple of months ago?
Yes, I remember those poor souls. They were quite badly injured, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, listen, they're recovering well and are even set to feature in the King's Trooping of the Colour Parade tomorrow. So, to get you in the mood for some pageantry and pomp and ceremony, why not? Joining us now is former royal correspondent Michael Cole. Good morning, Michael. Good news that these Good morning. Good news that these two horses are set to feature. I'm more concerned, though, about the Princess of Wales. There's a hint that maybe she could appear on the balcony, or is it just conjecture?
Well, you make all the relevant points for about tomorrow, one of the great set pieces of the royal year. But, Ben, you're absolutely right. Tennyson, one of the horses that was injured, will be taking part in the procession, along with 240 other horses. Another couple of horses, Trojan and Vanquish, they'll be guarding the royal premises. But unfortunately, two of the others, Vida and Quaker, they're still in Horses Hospital, but they are apparently progressing well. That was a terrible event. It was very fortunate that more people weren't injured. It was an appalling occurrence, those workmen dropping heavy bits of masonry as the parade went by and completely spooked those horses. But moving on to your other point, will Catherine, Princess of Wales, be at the Trooping of the Colour? Of course, the trooping tomorrow will be of the 2nd Battalion of the Irish Guards. And who is the Colonel of the Irish Guards? None other than the Princess of Wales. And you remember last year, she wore a very striking emerald outfit on the balcony, rather indicating her allegiance to the Emerald Isle. Were I giving them PR advice? If it were possible, if the doctors said yes, it would be a very good opportunity for her to make a reappearance because, one, she wouldn't have to say anything. Two, people would be reassured about her returning to good health.
Oh, he's gone. We've just lost
hello.
Michael Cole there, but I think it's quite fascinating, the Trooping of the Colour. I was just doing a little bit of research about what it is all about. That's quite fascinating, really.
Do you know what? It's what makes Britain great. And in a time where so many of our traditions are being eroded away and people trying to, you know, just strip us of our identity, it's a great event. Michael Cole, he's back with us. Hello, Michael, where did you go? You went. Carry on. Sorry about that.
Disappeared.
Ben and Nana, I'm an occasional visitor. It's a great pleasure to be with you, but you, Ben, asked the question about the Princess of Wales, and I don't know whether anybody got that answer. It would be an extremely good thing if the doctors allow, if she is well enough, for her to make a reappearance on the balcony, not having to sit necessarily through the 2 hours of the ceremonial and the parade. But were she to do so, it would be very appropriate because she is the Colonel of the Irish Guards, and it's the Irish Guards 2nd Battalion that is trooping their colour tomorrow. And you may remember last year she wore a very striking emerald outfit on the balcony, emerald associated with the Emerald Isle, of course. And if she were to do that, it would be good in several ways, because one, she wouldn't have to say anything. Second, we would all be reassured about her return to the best of possible health. And thirdly, it would scotch all the stupid and vile rumours that have been racing around the world about her present condition. I won't even repeat them. Giving them currency would only legitimise them in one way or another. But let us hope she may appear. If I were giving them PR advice, and I must say they haven't asked me yet, I would say if it is possible, she should be there, because everybody would like to see her.
Well, Harry, and dare I say it, Meghan?
What about them?
Listen, Ben, you can go down to the betting shop and put fiver on it. They will not be there. The California 2 will be staying away. And I'm sure you know that hurts him, because he had his best life, really, when he was in the army, when he was in the Army Air Corps, and he was in the Household Cavalry, indeed. He was a member of the Household Division. And I'm sure it hurts him that he doesn't have those associations, because he prized them most highly. But in this life, Nana, isn't it true? You make your bed and you lie in it.
Exactly. And whatever is in there, it's unfortunate if that's not very nice. Anyway, I'll move on, because otherwise I'll get myself in one of my monologues again. Michael, I want to ask you this. Some people hear the word trooping of the colour, trooping of the colour. What does it actually mean?
Well, it's certainly, it goes back many centuries. Essentially, in time of war, when armies fought along fronts, the members of the regiment had to be familiar with their flag, their colours, so that if they were separated, they knew where to rally and to see their flag. So what happens is that their new colours, which were presented by the King to the 2nd Battalion of the Irish Guards a little bit earlier, that will be trooped along the front of all the members of the regiment, so that they are familiar with their flag and they can rally to it during the time and the confusion of a battle. But it is a very important event, because the King is the Commander-in-Chief of the Household Division, which is the 5 regiments of guards and the 2 mounted regiments, the Life Guards and the Blues and Royals. So he, in fact, it's the Army's birthday present to the King. OK, his birthday is in November the 14th, but always this Saturday in June is the official birthday. And this birthday parade is the Army, and particularly the Household Division of the Army, saying, "Happy birthday, Your Majesty." The King will be there. He won't be riding astride at the head of the procession, but he will be going in a carriage, we presume, with Her Majesty Queen Camilla sitting together. And then he will go along the front of the parade, reviewing the troops in that way. Her Majesty, the late Queen Elizabeth II, for 40 years, she rode astride to the trooping of the colour until 1986. And I was there when she took to a dinky little carriage, which we immediately nicknamed Queen Victoria's go-kart, and she went in this carriage and then took her place on the dais to take the salute.
All right, Michael Cole, thank you very much for your expertise this morning. And if you didn't catch the intro at the top of the show this morning, a special GB News coverage show of Trooping the Colour tomorrow, 10 till midday tomorrow, Saturday, with Ellie Costello and Andrew Pearce,
yes.
Tory Boy Pearce.
Yeah, well,
so don't miss that.
Yeah, do not miss that. But up next, stay with us for a GB News exclusive as we find out that prisoners have been rapping about a rather topical issue. Stay tuned. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk east easterly winds. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's just coming up to 48 minutes after 10 o'clock. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Now, look, I mentioned a bit earlier about the G7 summit in Italy and Joe Biden's latest gaffe. So a parachuter lands in front of all the world leaders, US President Joe Biden, Giorgia Meloni, Trudeau, Rishi Sunak's there as well, Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commissioner. And Joe Biden, as you can see here, if you watch you on television, just wanders off. Starts having a conversation with an officer. Well, I think there's an officer just out of shot.
No, there's no one there.
Look at Georgia Meloni saying, Joe, come back here. We're all looking at this parachuter. It's astonishing, really, and it's the latest in a litany of gaffes from the president, who some argue, some say, not least Donald Trump.
He puts on his glasses, though, like someone in Top Gear.
Some would say he's past it, but extraordinary footage from the G7. And I'm not sure if you saw overnight, President or ex-President Donald Trump did an interview, a podcast with YouTuber Logan Paul, where he said Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine because he saw what happened with Joe Biden's evacuation of Afghanistan, the completely botched mission where they left Afghanistan after many, many years of occupying the country. And he said that Putin just saw that and the state of it and said, why not? Let's go for it. He said it never would have happened under his watch as president. And he called it the most embarrassing day in US history. So the next couple of months in the US election is going to be interesting, to say the least. Will Joe Biden last the duration?
Well, that's the thing. Well, moving on now. For a GB News exclusive, prisoners have been filming pro-Hamas raps for TikTok from their cells.
Deary me. So with loud beats playing from a speaker, one video shows them not condemning Hamas and the atrocities of October the 7th, and even making gestures towards the camera. Let's take a look.
For Gaza, yeah, free Palestine and Gaza, mental man and crave, yeah, no long thing. Yo. Look at the news, all I see is drama. Look at the happening in Gaza.
Well, GB News reporter Charlie Peters, who uncovered this story, joins us now. Charlie, talk us through this.
Well, this is an ongoing crisis that the prison service has had to deal with for many years now, which is mobile phones in jails. Now, the prison service told me that they do not tolerate mobile phones in prisons, and prisoners found with them face extra time behind bars. But in reality, there is a widespread issue of prisoners having phones in their cells, and not just small ones that can be smuggled in for texting, but full-on mobile phones, like the one you would have seen filming that footage we just saw. And that account I saw that on had very few number of views, but I'm tracking this stuff all the time, and they had several other videos published over a 6-month period, including an interview with a convicted murderer, a several-part interview, and indeed footage of someone, quote, pimping their cell, so updating what was in their cell, giving them a cleaner, giving them all that sort of new stuff and moving it around. They've got speakers in their cells, they've got these phones. There appears in the footage I've seen to be an enormous amount of personal freedom afforded to these prisoners. The prison service say that they've got a digital media investigations unit. They work with social media companies to bring this footage down when they find it and when we raise it with them as journalists. But at the same time, it's clear that they are struggling massively to prevent these phones from being smuggled in.
Well, we see it year after year. The tabloids mainly are numerous stories in The Sun uncovering what they call, prisons akin to something like Butlins or Pontins. I'm not sure if you've seen a story in The Telegraph a few months back showing that 1 in 5 Muslim prisoners is now white. There's a growing theory that white prisoners are being converted to Islam. I don't know if there's anything, linking to this to growing content about Hamas and so on. Had you seen that in The Telegraph?
I haven't seen that, but I do know that due to staff shortages, as it relates to this issue with phones, there has been an issue for inspecting cells. They're meant to be in there at least once a month, looking through, making sure there aren't phones in the cells, making sure there isn't any other contraband. Because it's not just mobile phones in these cases, there's also plenty of drugs in the cells. Lots of footage on TikTok that I've seen, particularly in the last week, stuff we're still sifting through, of prisoners very high on what appears to be synthetic drugs that they often show off in the footage. This is published to the public. Everyone can see this. So to what extent this digital media investigations unit is successful is, up to the viewers and the listeners to decide. But it does appear there's a widespread amount of information and footage being uploaded on an almost daily basis.
And these are serious prisoners, aren't they? They're not just, Catsy, open prison convicts. These are, proper...
These are hardened criminals. Now, for obvious reasons, the prison service won't tell me which prison was where this footage originates from, but they do say that this is a serious offence and they're looking into an additional 45 days in jail for anyone caught with a phone.
But you would think that somebody there would see that there is an issue. So what is wrong with the prisons that they're not able to find these things in these cells and this is carrying on? Because clearly that's happening and clearly this stuff is getting into the prison.
Well, the prison service say they've got 75 full-body X-ray scanners across the male estate. So every single prisoner, a male prisoner who goes into prison has that scan. And they say they've made about 45,000 discoveries up to October 2023, and they've invested hundreds of millions into that inspection service. But speaking to former prison staff and judging by some of the coverage online about this issue, it does appear that only goes so far. And there is a problem with corrupt prison officers bringing this stuff directly to prisoners. And tiny phones that you can buy for 15 quid online or on your high street, they can go for up to £1,000 in prison, especially Category A prison, where there is that additional level of security and oversight by the prison service.
So they've got money, they've got phones, they've got everything.
They've got drugs. Some of the footage is...
What's the point?
Some of the footage they're showing off... Some of the footage they're showing off is quite pathetic in a way. They're saying, we run our wings, and they demonstrate how they're living what they say is a free life. But there's quite a lot of footage of them cooking meals in kettles. It's certainly not the comfy, living their high life vision that they're trying to project on TikTok to say that they are escaping the oversight of prison authorities. But it is clear at the same time that there has been way too much freedom allowing for those situations to arise.
All right, Charlie Peters, great story. Thank you for bringing it to us. I mean, it's just absurd, isn't it? If we do manage to get criminals in prison, they are enjoying, the life of Riley. It's just beggars belief.
Right, well, it's been a year since the Nottingham attacks, and we'll be joined by Emma Webber, the mum of Barnaby, who was one of 3 repeatedly stabbed to death. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. It's 11 a.m. on Friday, June the 14th. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Ben Leo, and the lovely Nana Akweer.
Right, well, so coming up, Reform UK are on the rise. The Tories have been overtaken by Nigel Farage's party in an opinion poll, so just one of the polls for the first time. So do you think that Reform is the real opposition party?
And is Labour the party of tax rises? The left-leaning Resolution Foundation says the party's manifesto is not clear how Sir Keir Starmer would pay for his pledges. That's despite Sir Keir saying this.
Been very, very clear, particularly in relation to working people, no increase in income tax, no increase in national insurance and no increase in VAT. Absolutely clearly set out in this manifesto.
Booming booze prices, pubs and breweries across the country demand an immediate cut in beer duty, as it's 3 times that of the European average.
And in just a tick, we'll be speaking to the mum of Barnaby Webber, the 19-year-old who was one of 3 people killed in Nottingham last year by Valdo Calacane. She wants a public inquiry into the handling of the case.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that. She'll be live in the studio with her thoughts on what happened. I mean, it was a terrible case and all the sort of things that went wrong afterwards as well.
Yeah, really, really horrific. The one-year anniversary, of course, since that tragic attack, 3 people died. And Barnaby Webber's mother feels a big sense of injustice because Calcone, the killer, he was sent to a mental institution instead of prison. She has lots of gripes, including the fact that he wasn't tested for drugs in the days after the killings.
Well, then he wouldn't have been able to claim diminished responsibility if he had been. So all these things that appeared to go wrong, and then obviously the behaviour of the police in the way they were talking about the investigation as well. But do stay with us, that is coming up. You will not want to miss it. gbnews.com/your say with your thoughts. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia.
Nana, thank you. Good morning. It's 2 minutes past 11. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your top story this hour. The Prime Minister says a vote for Reform UK risks handing a blank cheque to the Labour Party. A new poll by YouGov puts Nigel Farage's party neck and neck with the Tories less than 3 weeks before the election. The pollster says the close result represents a seismic shift in the voting landscape. But they also caution that Britain's voting system means Reform may still struggle to pick up any seats. Meanwhile, Labour scored 37%, down 1 point, while the Liberal Democrats also lost a point, scoring 14%, with the Greens on 7 points. Specialist mental health hubs would be set up under a plan by Labour to help get people back to work. It would see an extra 8,500 new staff recruited to boost access to mental health support. Depression and anxiety are amongst the top common conditions that force people out of work, while an estimated 1.2 million people are currently waiting for mental health services. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting told GB News that poor healthcare is costing the country billions.
I'm the Health Secretary and I'm able to deliver those 40,000 extra appointments every week and double the number of diagnostic scanners and 8,500 extra mental health staff to cut the more than 1 million people waiting for mental health treatment. Not only are we going to be able to get people back to health, in lots of those cases, that means people back to work. So we've currently got 3 million people who are both off sick and off work in our country. Not their fault, they can't get the treatment, but if we get people off waiting lists, not only will we be getting them back to health, we'll also be getting them back to work. That will help drive economic growth.
Backing British farmers will be central to a plan set to be unveiled by the Liberal Democrats later. The party's deputy leader, Daisy Cooper, will be on the campaign trail in the east of England, promoting her party's national food strategy. It would include financial help for farmers who are coping with expensive energy and production costs. The party says the strategy also tackles rising prices on supermarket shelves, ending food poverty and ensuring better food security. The US-Ukraine presidents have signed a 10-year security agreement, bolstering Kyiv's defence and inching it closer towards NATO membership. The historic deal was signed on the sidelines of a G7 summit, which is currently taking place in southern Italy. It aims to guarantee support for Ukraine's war against Russia's invasion, even if Donald Trump were to win November's US election. The gathering also agreed to continue a loan worth £40 billion funded by frozen Russian assets. Campaigners from several movements, including the Grenfell fire and infected blood scandal, are calling for new rules to ensure recommendations for public inquiries can't be ignored. A walk is taking place in West London later to commemorate the 7th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower disaster that claimed 72 lives. The first phase of a public inquiry ended 5 years ago, but campaigners say some of its recommendations still haven't been implemented. The groups are now calling for a new body that would follow up on findings and ensure they're put into place. Tesco has revealed a strong increase in the amount of groceries bought in the last 3 months as inflation eases. The UK's largest supermarket firm revealed the total retail sales grew 3.4% in May compared with the same time last year. This came on the back of a 5% increase in food sales, with high demand for fresh produce helping to drive higher sales volumes. And as Britain waits for grey skies to clear, Greece is sweltering through its earliest ever heat wave. Tourist sites have been forced to close and elderly people are taking refuge at special cooling centres as temperatures in some areas push past 43 degrees. The deputy mayor in Athens says emergency services are keeping a watch for anyone experiencing difficulty. Experts say Greece has been severely impacted by climate change in recent years, with rising temperatures fueling deadly fires and erratic weather conditions. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Ben and Nana.
Hello, good morning. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 11 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's election channel. I'm Nana Aquia. This is Ben Lear.
Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Let's cross to Westminster now, where Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Laura Trott, is responding to Labour's manifesto.
Taxes. Yesterday, we saw a manifesto from Labour that contained no tax cuts, only tax rises. They even warn of it in their manifesto. To quote directly, they say they will give due warning of tax and spending policies. It's a tax trap manifesto from a Labour Party that has tax rises coded into its DNA. Labour's first, second and third answer to every problem is always the same: raise taxes. And as a result, the tax burden under Labour, on their own figures, will rise to be the highest our country has ever seen. Analysis by the independent IFS show that under the tax plans in Labour's manifesto, the tax burden will rise to 37.4% of GDP in 28-29. This is higher than the level they will inherit, higher than under the Conservative plans, and higher than the historic record of 37.2% in 1948. And this means that, as we set out in the document we published today, taxes would be £58 billion higher under Labour than under the Conservatives over the next Parliament. But this calculation is just based on the formal tax rises Labour have set out in their own documents. And I'm afraid to tell you, there's more to come. Analysis of Labour's spending commitments, including 21 costings by Treasury officials, Labour's own figures and costings from other independent sources, show Labour have a £38.5 billion black hole in their plans over the next 4 years. That will require Labour to raise taxes by £2,094 for every working family. Tax rises on top of those set out by Keir Starmer yesterday. People in this country have had an incredibly tough time with their cost of living after the shocks caused by COVID and Putin's war in Ukraine. We're just starting to turn a corner. The economy is growing, inflation is back to normal, and wages are rising. The last thing working families in our country need is Labour's £2,000 tax bill. But this tax bill is what they are going to get if the Labour Party form the next government. So, we know how much this tax bill is. We've been talking about it a lot. But the question is, which taxes are they going to raise to fit it? It's very notable, and I'm sure you've all seen, what Labour have and haven't ruled out. When we, the Conservatives, ruled out raising VAT, we noticed that Labour had not done so, and we challenged them. Why not? Within hours, Rachel Reeves herself issued a statement saying Labour does rule out raising VAT. They've also matched us on income tax and not raising employee national insurance. But that is where they have very conspicuously stopped. We openly challenged Labour to match the other tax guarantees in our manifesto. Their response? Silence. These Conservative tax guarantees on pensions, on family homes, on family businesses, on cars and on energy bills have not been matched by Labour. In fact, Labour have explicitly refused to rule these out. You've all heard the interviews. For example, we've ruled out any new taxes on workplace pensions. We've ruled out introducing new council tax bans and holding a council tax revaluation. We've also ruled out applying capital gains tax to the sale of people's main family homes, which Angela Rayner last night explicitly and deliberately. Think about that. For the first time ever, people's family homes will be dragged into capital gains tax. Can we be clear what this means?
They're talking about Labour's manifesto plans in Westminster, claiming that they were, well, planning...
What she said about a tax trap, didn't she? She said it's a tax trap manifesto that have tax rises coded in their DNA, is what she was saying. And under their own figures, the tax burden would rise to 37.4%, I think she said, of GDP. £58 billion, she said it would be higher than theirs. And actually, the analysis of Labour's own figures show that there'll be a £38.5 billion black hole. That's what she said. And she also pointed out the last thing working families need is Labour's £2,000 tax bill. So she's re-referenced the £2,000 that Rishi Sunak and they do keep doing that, don't they? They're still staying on it, aren't they?
They're sticking by it. The Tories, I mean, James Cleverly, when he was up against Wes Streeting in the spin room the other night, he was sticking by the figure. And as you said, Labour's own costings document shows net tax rises of £8.5 billion in 2028-2029. Yeah. Add that to the current OBR forecast, and a tax share of GDP rises to 37.4%. That's the highest in history.
Interesting. And it's what they're not saying. So a lot of people want to know how will they pay for that? But we want to know how all the parties are going to pay for these promises.
Yeah, lots of questions still remain with a couple of weeks to go before the general election. One quick email from Tug. You say, off the back of Charlie Peters' great story about prisons, you say, I thought that if you served jail time, it was to remove you from society and all the privileges of society. So why are criminals allowed phones and Wi-Fi? And Charlie, you say, give Joe Biden credit. You're reading a gaffe into it. All he did was turn around to talk and thumbs up to the para guy. Your interpretation is wrong. He
was talking to no one. There was no one in front of him now, unfortunately. And then he had to be brought back. That's the problem with it. Yeah, interesting stuff. Right. Well, as ever, we want to hear your views on all matters that we're discussing this morning. Yeah, and that's why we're sending our reporters right across the country, all up and down the UK, to speak to you, the viewers. Will Hollis, our reporter, is in Retford this morning. Good morning, Will. What's going on?
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, well, this is Retford, the Red Wall. Bassett Law is the constituency in North Nottinghamshire. And why are we here today? Well, it's because this is an important place, particularly for the Conservatives in 2019, snatching this away from a pretty hefty Labour hold of 40. When the Conservatives took this in 2019, it was the biggest swing during the election, 14,000 votes. So if Labour want to win again nationally, they need to take back places like this. They've been in power here since 1929, nearly 100 years. We're at Eddie's Cafe here in the High Street in Retford, and we've got a couple of local voters from Retford. We've got Jeff Hampson, who's a Labour voter, and we've got Lucy Rose, who's undecided. Jeff, let's start off with you, because the spotlight really is on Labour. How did you feel in 2019 when Labour voters like you turned away from the party and voted for the Conservatives?
Oh, very upset, very upset. I think Corbyn had a lot to do with it. A lot of people didn't like him. No way was they going to vote Corbyn in as Labour leader, Prime Minister. And since 2019, it's just gone downhill. It's got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. Do you think that, as Keir Starmer says, the Labour Party is a changed Labour Party and they can win nationally as well as in places like Bassetlaw?
I'm sure they can, yes. Yeah, I've a lot of respect for Sir Keir. I've actually met him. I've actually had a meeting with him and met him, and he is a gentleman, and he is true to his word. I'm sure he'll do much better as Prime Minister than Sunak, who is really upset me with the bringing national service back, being a veteran myself and training recruits. It's not that easy to bring national service back. All the instructors have gone. They'd have to train all new instructors to get, and then plus the fact the 18-year-olds, they want to go to university. And the only training they're going to get in the forces is how to fire a gun.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear that as a veteran you're not a fan of national service, or at least the Conservatives' plan for national service. Lucy, we've just been hearing a little bit about taxes. We've just had Laura Trott, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, criticising Labour's plans for tax rises. How do you feel about Labour saying that they'd bring in some taxes in some areas to pay for public services, but the Conservatives saying that they'd drop taxes?
So dropping taxes would be a lot better off for everybody around this area and other areas, definitely.
Yeah. Why would it be better? What could it help for local people in Retford if they had more money in their pocket?
There's a lot of things that we could do in Retford. There's parts of Retford that need rebuilding, you know, and we could all do that. The schools could do with a lot of help. We could do with a lot of help with the flooding, etc.
Yeah, Retford experienced really bad flooding just before Christmas time, October, November, and you were flooded. How do you feel right now, and do you think you've got the support that you need, which is not just a problem here in Retford, but in lots of places around the country?
Yeah, we feel like we haven't got any support. There's Retford, Bawtry, Scathworth, a lot of the farmers around that area. Bawtry was shut for such a long time. You know, some of our neighbours aren't in our home. I've only been back 4 weeks now, and we haven't seen any sort of help. We need some support from everywhere.
You're an undecided voter. What needs to happen for somebody to win your vote? Right now we're talking a little bit about Nigel Farage's party Reform overtaking the Conservatives. They say that they're now the opposition to Labour, who are destined for power. What do you think about the Reform Party? Are you tempted when you're an undecided voter?
I still really don't know. I really need to have a really good look at what's going on with everybody. You know, at the minute they're all sort of throwing different things at you, so it's really got to have a good look at what's going on.
Jeff Hampson, you're a traditional Labour voter that didn't turn to the Tories. A lot of people are considering reform now after maybe thinking that the Conservatives didn't give them what they wanted. Do you think that there's that risk that maybe traditional Labour voters that did go to the Conservatives won't go back to Labour but will instead put their vote for reform instead?
I think they'll come back to Labour. I honestly do. We have a very good candidate in this area, and who works very, very hard, even now, leading up to an election. And I'm sure that there'll be more people voting Labour. Bear in mind, it's an ex-mining community, and the mining communities were traditional Labour supporters.
And it's those people that Keir Starmer needs to win back. Jeff, thank you so much. Lucy as well. We're here in Bassetlaw all day. If you do want to see the candidates, you can find that on Bassetlaw's Statement of Nominations page for the local council.
Right, thank you, Will. And the full list of Bassetlaw constituency candidates are as follows. Brendan Clark-Smith, Conservative Party; Rachel Sarah Reeves, the Green Party; Frank Ward, Reform UK; Helen Tamblyn-Saville, the Liberal Democrats; and Joe White, Labour.
OK, great. We're going to go back to Westminster, where the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Laura Trott, is responding to Labour's manifesto.
Some space for their own uncertain events, like you said just then, that they have to have some way of raising money if they have to, if a black swan event happens like Ukraine, energy shock or COVID. And just quickly, the Euros start this weekend. If you're a football team, you're 4-0 down, the crowd are booing you. Isn't it time to do a deal with a striker on a rival team and get Nigel Farage to do a deal with the Tory party and see off Labour?
Just on football, I'm afraid I'm not the right person to ask, but no. And then I think more broadly on your... What was your actual other question? Sorry, I forgot. You put me off with the football.
So you guys, that way taxes to deal with big
Yeah.
issues happening, aren't they?
No, what they're doing is they are pretending in a disingenuous way that they've got to wait to see the books. The books are there, right? They're called OBR forecasts. They can look at them, right? What they are doing is secretly planning a number of tax rises which they have not got a mandate for. And that is outrageous, and we are not going to let them get away with it. Okay, and final question from ITV.
Hi there, Mahathir Pasha from ITV News. You say that Keir Starmer should have the courage and conviction to be honest about the clear choice the next government will face about whether to hike taxes or cut spending. In the spirit of that honesty, which would a Conservative government do?
Well, we've set out very clearly here today how we have a plan in our fully costed manifesto to address the issues facing the country, but crucially to cut people's taxes. Right, and that involves difficult decisions. Government is not easy, but we have been transparent about those decisions. And what I'm putting to you today is the same cannot be said for the Labour Party. They are planning to raise your taxes. They are planning, by not ruling out capital gains tax on your primary home, to levy that tax. That is outrageous. It will be disastrous for this country, and we won't let them get away with it. Right, that is enough, I think, from me today. But thank you very much all for coming, as ever. It was nice to see you all, and thank you.
OK, that was Laura Trotz there in Westminster, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, responding to Labour's manifesto plans. And we also got Christopher Hope's question in there as well. We're joined again this morning by former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and author and broadcaster Amy Nicole-Turner. Thank you for returning. What should we get stuck into first? What about this one in the Daily Mail? Jan Moir, she says that Wes Streeting and his tweet saying he wanted to push me under a train, this was from many years ago, he tweeted this, he's since apologised, but she's talking about how you know, it was a pretty nasty tweet, to be frank.
It was a nasty tweet in response to an incredibly nasty article that we need to not lose sight of. So, Jan... Hang
on, there's no excuse for saying
look on the front. Yeah, well, hang on a minute, because actually he tweeted in response to an article about Stephen Gately. Stephen Gately's funeral had not even happened yet, and Jan Moir published an article heaped in prejudice, saying there was nothing natural about Stephen Gately's death, which was just littered full of ill-informed presumptions about gay men and gay men's lifestyles. Now, Wes Streeting would have been, how many years ago is this? He would have been probably in his early 20s, a gay man living in London, and I'm not surprised he was deeply, deeply appalled by this article, because it was a disgusting article.
Okay.
And she should be apologising for the article. She says he had a non-apology. In that piece, she stood by what she wrote. She stood by what she wrote, which she said Stephen Gately's natural death was not even by a yardstick natural. She's standing by her word.
But she can stand by she can stand by her work. Amy, she can stand by her work. But Wes Streeting will potentially be our health secretary, OK? That kind of language, and that's not exactly... Let me finish. That kind of language is really unacceptable if you're going to be sending that on any sort of tweet. And then not only that, but let's talk about the other stuff that he said with regard to Susan Hall as well, that a vote for her was for white supremacists, a vote for white supremacists and racists. I mean, look, he's got form. That's not acceptable.
Susan Hall also has form.
Yeah, but we are talking about Wes Streeting.
We're
talking about
Wes
Streeting.
It wasn't an unfounded claim.
No, but we're talking about Wes Streeting, a potential Minister of State
and he's apologised for this tweet. I don't think he should.
He hasn't. I don't think he's apologised. He hasn't apologised.
For this one about Jan Moir, I was so surprised.
He apologised for that one,
apologised for that.
But not for Susan Hall.
She should apologise for that article. That article upset so many people at the time, and his response... He wasn't a minister. I don't know what he was doing then. It was, what, 12 years ago or something? Yeah, he would have been maybe...
I don't think that gets you that's a get out of jail for, because it was 12 years ago. And also the subsequent tweets and messages he sent have not been really acceptable.
I just wish they'd all grow up, to be honest with you. I'm just sick of the whole lot of them just fighting like kids in a playground. I mean, it's like every day you wake up and one of them said something stupid either today or back in the past. I mean, you know, and it wasn't long ago. Joe Cox, David Amess. I mean, the language around politics at the moment is just so... it's just so inflammatory. It's just completely wrong. In Wes Streeting's defence, I do think he's one of the few Labour people that admits that the NHS does need reform and it's not worth just throwing loads of money at it. He said that in an interview the other day, so he does talk a bit of sense occasionally.
Well, exactly.
I used to find Wes Streeting quite refreshing, but then when he got in on the dispatch box in the Commons and laughed with all his Labour MPs about the NatCon event in Brussels being shut down, the one that Nigel Farage was at, I just thought, come on, you know, people of the right side of the argument would back the left's right for free speech at all costs. But when it comes, you know, in reverse, left supporting the right, they just seem to think it's a big fat joke.
But you don't laugh at the left-wing perspectives? You don't have a little giggle at our left-wing perspectives from time to time?
I don't ever laugh at opposition or lefties being shut down. No, I fully support.
It was about being shut down, wasn't it?
Even if I don't agree with their
You might die for
opinions.
the right for free speech, but do you have a bit of a giggle at it from time to time, don't you?
Well, yes, but that's not what the point is. The point of it is...
wasn't shutting down the right to say it.
No, the point of it is that he was mocking the fact that Nigel Farage was being shut down, and that's what he was mocking, which wasn't funny. Yet on the right,
condemning it.
We don't mind any speech.
He was laughing at Suella Braverman being abroad when she was supposed to be representing the people of Fareham.
He wasn't. He was giggling with his Labour MPs at the dispatch box in the Commons as Conservatives, people like Nigel Farage, were in Brussels being shut down by the police, the state, the Belgian state shutting down free speech.
Right, let's move on. Right, what's our next story? What do you want to do? We're going to do Tom Kerridge?
Underwear or Tom Kerridge?
I'll do underwear.
We fit in with
Tom Kerridge.
All right, let's start with you then. Underwear.
Right, underwear. OK, this is a story from the Daily Star. It's fun, right? OK, we're going to have some fun. This is boffins that say people should stop washing their underwear and clothes off in a bid to save the planet. Climate exchange. Yeah, you know you're going to get there.
From what, though?
Yeah, from the global boiling. I mean, how cold is it? How cold? Any case, yeah, we are being told not to, rather than using our washing machines, we're told just to air our pants.
Oh,
what?
Yeah.
This sounds like a fast track
but, I mean, you know,
health problem.
to be honest with you, Amy, most blokes won't have a problem with this because 1 in 5 men, Ben, looking at you, 1 in 5 men admit to washing their underwear just once a week. 5% of
Ben,
5% of men.
How often are you washing?
I do it once every 2 weeks.
What? Your pants?
Yeah.
But that's washing them. What about changing them?
I wear them every day for 2 weeks.
What, the same ones?
No, I'm joking. Every day, of course.
You know, I'm not sure because 5% of men do that. 5% of men
wear the same underwear for
2 to 3 weeks.
Disgusting.
I think that's the same 5% of men.
The same pants, Nana. Don't get
the same pants for 2 to 3 weeks.
Vile behaviour.
You can't do that.
Save the planet.
I don't think so. Save us all, for goodness sake. Wash them. Amy, coming to you, Tom Kerridge. He said he's a workaholic.
Yeah, so he's done an interview with The Eye in which he admits that running his restaurant empire, being a celebrity chef, has made him into a workaholic, and quite often he'll go days without seeing his children.
That's sad. I guess success comes at a cost, but I mean, each to their own, I suppose. But I really, if it was a choice between my career or my kids, I'd have to choose my kids.
But I think it goes without saying that all working parents do feel the element of guilt all the time. It seems to come with the territory, doesn't it?
I don't. No. When I go to work, I say, I love you people. Thank God I'm going to do something else. See you later. Go to your dads. Go to school. I enjoy my moments when I love my children. They're beautiful. They're so cute. But then I think, OK, I'm going to do my stuff now for me.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier for stay-at-home mums like my wife. She stays at home and looks after the kids when they're not at nursery. It's harder for them. Yeah, I get to escape and come to work, and you know, my commute on the train is quite enjoyable. I get to read or whatever. Whereas she's stuck at home with the kids the whole time. So
yeah. And how do you think your kids are feeling? Going, oh my God, thank God he's gone, Mum. No. Obviously, I've worked on newspapers my entire career, and I never wanted children, but doing the job I did, editing national, you couldn't have children. It's impossible with your male or female to dedicate yourself to that job 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have children.
Do you feel any regret to not having children?
No, not at all. No. Best thing I ever did.
No. And the thing is, sometimes women are vilified for not wanting children, but I love my kids. I'm really glad I have them, but I get it. I'd have been all right if I didn't have children, but I'm glad that I have them, so I'm thankful.
Nana, what really annoys me is with women, it's always like, oh, can you have them? No one ever asks that to men. If you're childless as a man, it's like, fine, that's your choice. But as a woman, oh, are you sure was there a problem? It's no, there wasn't, just didn't want them, OK?
Well, I've got a couple of friends who get told off for saying that when they're looking after their own kids, maybe one Friday night, and the wife goes out, they say, oh, I can't tonight, I'm babysitting.
Babysitting!
I say it as well.
Go there. They're your kids.
They're your own, yeah.
You're raising your own children, that's not babysitting. sitting.
I have an ex who often says to me, "Oh, well, I'm doing you a favour looking after them." I said, "That's half yours. That's half yours. I'm doing you a favour. I do 90% of it."
Someone on gbnews.com/your say, Pollyanna has said, Ben doesn't wash his underwear, his wife does it. It is true.
How does she know that's true?
It is true, because I work and she doesn't.
The kids all the time and does the washing.
Well, she stays at home and I work, she doesn't.
Well, she does work. She works at home with the children. That's hard work. She won't like the sound of that.
Of course, she works very hard with the children, but
You at least make
Ben, the first rule of holes, right, is just stop digging,
Yeah,
mate,
there's
okay?
three of us. Three against one here, mate.
Who books two women on the panel? It's 3v1.
Well,
Ben, you can identify. We'll accept you.
But we won't wash your pants.
OK.
Oh, God.
All right, on that
You've got his wife for that, remember.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Dawn. Let's get your news headlines with Sophia Wenzer.
Ben, thank you. From the GB Newsroom at 11:30, your headlines. The Prime Minister says a vote for Reform UK risks handing a blank cheque to the Labour Party. The new poll by YouGov puts Nigel Farage's party neck and neck with the Tories less than 3 weeks before the election. The pollster says the close result represents a seismic shift in the voting landscape. But they also caution that Britain's voting system means Reform may still struggle to pick up any seats. Meanwhile, Labour scored 37%, down 1 point, while the Liberal Democrats also lost a point, scoring 14%, and with the Greens on 7 points. Specialist mental health hubs would be set up under a plan by Labour to help get people back to work, with an extra 8,500 new staff. Depression and anxiety are among the most common conditions that force people out of work, while an estimated 1.2 million people are currently waiting for mental health treatment. Backing British farmers will be central to a plan set to be unveiled by the Liberal Democrats later. The party's deputy leader, Daisy Cooper, will be on the campaign trail in the east of England, promoting her party's national food strategy. It would include financial help for farmers who are coping with expensive energy and production costs. The party says the strategy also tackles rising prices on supermarket shelves, ending food poverty and ensuring better food security. And the US and Ukrainian presidents have signed a 10-year security agreement, bolstering Kyiv's defence and inching it closer towards NATO membership. The historic deal was signed on the sidelines of the G7 summit, which is currently taking place in southern Italy. It aims to guarantee support for Ukraine's war against Russia's invasion, even if Donald Trump were to win November's US election. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pounds will buy you $1.2699 and €1.1890 euros. The price of gold is £1,829 and 38 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,132 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thanks, Sophia. Up at noon is Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. Hello to you both. What's on the show today?
We've got a huge amount coming up.
We do. Live events galore. Not least Nigel Farage and his first press conference. 1 o'clock, the first press conference after that astonishing YouGov poll last night that showed Reform 1 point ahead of the Conservative Party.
Yes, it'll be very interesting to hear what Nigel Farage has to say. He's saying he's the opposition now. A vote for the Conservatives is now a vote for Labour. Yes, I imagine he'll be enthusiastic.
And yet, diving into the detail of that poll, we actually find some more very, very interesting elements that might inform the rest of this race. We're halfway through this general election campaign as of yesterday. Now, one of those numbers was the proportion of people who think that Labour getting a big majority would be a good thing or a bad thing. evenly split across the country, 38 to 38. Now, the rest don't know. But that suggests that there is an even number of people who are not enthusiastic about a big Labour majority as who like it. But even more interestingly, amongst Reform voters, that soars up to 80%. 80% of Reform voters do not want the Labour Party to get a big majority.
Which is why so many Conservatives have been coming out, senior Conservatives like Sir Geoffrey Cox, coming out and saying, do you want a one-party socialist state?
But you know the Labour Party may well be one party, but there are lots of parties within that one party. It'd be like the Conservative Party when they had their majority with their 5 families, or however many they've got now. So what we can be guaranteed of is when one party has such a massive majority, they start fighting like cats in a sack amongst themselves. Labour have got the unions, they've got the pro-Palestine part of their party.
The Socialist Campaign Group. I mean, there are... However, the question is, when there is that scale of majority, there is undeniably a big amount of power, especially in the first couple of years, for the leader. So, I mean, even when Boris had his 80-seat majority, he lost some votes. If we're talking about a 300-seat majority, I mean, this hasn't been seen in the UK since 1931. When the government had a super majority. And actually, it wasn't until after the Second World War that was dislodged.
And do you know what's even more incredible is the fact this has come after 2019, that thumping majority from Boris Johnson. In just a few years, you know, a complete 180. Rishi Sunak this morning at the G7 commenting on the potential for a supermajority, saying that it would give Labour a blank cheque to the country. So thank you. Up at midday, and Nigel is on at what time? 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
Thank you. Great stuff.
Well, right. Well, it's been a year since the Nottingham attacks, and we'll be joined by Emma Webber, the mum of Barnaby, who was stabbed to death whilst walking home from a night out. You're with Britain's Newsroom. This is GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The University of Cambridge has told students to stop flirting with staff under a new policy banning sexual relationships with professors. The new rules, which come into force next month, beginning of July, include a warning against behaviour that could be interpreted as flirtatious. University staff have been told they must report any behaviour that could constitute a student making advances towards a personal, particularly intimate relationship with them. If you're a tutor, how do you interpret what is flirting and what is just sort of like having a bit of banter?
In fact, we've got to sort
Very nice trousers, by the way.
Thank you.
You see, you didn't even recognise.
Oh, I didn't. I think I'm blushing now. I'm blushing.
So, what's flirting and what's me complimenting your very well-fitting trousers? Yes.
Well, there is a line, because obviously when you're 18 and you go to university, it might be the first time you're away from home. It might be the first time that you're open to maybe a bit of a nightlife, social activity, drinking and all the rest of it. On the flip side, I know a couple who, the pupil ended up dating their professor, and they've been together for about sort of 15 years now. So I used to go after lectures with my professor and the whole seminar. We used to go to the pub afterwards, and I became very good friends with... she was a mature student. She was on the very, very far left of political... you wondered where that was going for a second, didn't you?
We're both reading a huge
Very quick for you, Joe. We're running out of very nice trousers as well. We're running
Thank you. Not as snug as Charlie. I think you've got to have some rules in place that there's no abuse of power. Policing it's difficult. We ought to be in a position where you can say, get off, back off, or, banter's fine. Actually, I hate that word. I hate it almost as much as woke. Go on, email in.
Thank you very much. I'm flirting with both.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now, more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Hi Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. This is a GB News on Britain's Newsroom. Now, as ever, we want to hear what you think. Send us your views. Post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. And some of your comments have come in. I've got this one here from John Poulter. He says we're talking about national service. One of the guys who, one of the people, we go to the people and find out what their thoughts are. And John Poulter said it's pretty tragic hearing that a guy talking about national service proposal and how we don't even have trainers anymore. I suppose the young don't have any reference point, while the older amongst us remember very different times and find much of what's happening a pure tragedy. And then Mark Smith on that same subject said there'd be zero chance of conscription nowadays. The Queen's own gluten-free Fusiliers. I like that.
Gluten-free
Fusiliers, yeah.
Very good.
My pronouns are he, him, she, her, and all that nonsense.
Just one from John says, come on, Ben, who listens to Logan Paul? I mentioned he did an interview with the former US President Donald Trump overnight. Vladimir Putin had been planning the invasion of Ukraine since 2014. Maybe, but, you know, the fact remains there were no wars under Donald Trump. He insists it would never have happened, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, if he was in charge. He blames Joe Biden's botched evacuation of Afghanistan for Putin being encouraged to invade Ukraine. And should we just check out this float again from the G7? Sorry, this clip from the G7. Joe Biden, with all the world leaders, Meloni, Sunak, Trudeau, Macron, a parachutist comes in and lands, 6 of them, applauding, well done, good stuff. Joe Biden, meanwhile, doesn't seem to know where he is and decides to wander off smirking before being clocked by Meloni and Macron. Look at Meloni and Macron, Meloni in the pink. Oh, where's the president going? Quick, Macron,
He's not talking
Meloni,
to anybody as well.
Meloni, quite discreetly, comes over. Joe gives him a pat on the back. Joe, we're meant to be over here, my friend. And there we go. I mean, you just wonder what's going on with Joe Biden. I do feel sorry for him.
I don't at all. I feel sorry for the American people. I mean, that's the leader of the free world, the leader of their country. He's put on these shades as though he's on Top Gun. But where was he off to? I mean, this is just one of many gaffes. I don't get why people don't admit that he is not capable as a leader, as a leader of that country. And I think that people need to be honest about it, and he should be removed. It's ridiculous. Now, we were talking about Wes Streeting earlier. Ella says, and she was talking about the language that he was using, and she said, I think people are missing the point. Wes Streeting will be the next Health Secretary, totally unprofessional, not fit for government.
That's the point you made as well.
This is the point we're making. It's the fact that he's making those comments, and yet he is potentially will be residing over one of the most prestigious offices in the land, which is looking after our health, which is one of the things that the government spend the most amount of money on and affects all of us as well.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I was quite fond of Wes Streeting. He did a really good interview on Radio 4 some months ago talking about his upbringing and his cancer battle and so on. But then there was just, the unsurfaced tweets. Then you had the tweet about Susan Hall voters, call them white supremacists. And then, I mean, the big one for me was just laughing at the fact that NatCon event in Brussels was shut down. I say again, I will die for the right of people of all political persuasions to say what they think and, take up their right for free speech, but it doesn't seem to go the other way.
Well, listen, I've got this one here. Now, and it's one of the views that I'm almost sharing with you. It's about the leadership debate. This is from James Garnier. He says, scrap these ridiculous leader debates. All they do is encourage those taking part to try to convince us who is the biggest liar. They would all qualify to take part in the Would I Lie to You programme, and they would all be winners. We deserve better. Yeah, the 7-way debates, I'm getting a bit... there's not enough time for each of them to talk properly. They're all trying to score points. Somebody wants to try and get the applause, and I'm not hearing enough about what they're actually going to be doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, from what I saw last night, I felt Penny Mordaunt was, I mean, she was trying to, every time she tried to contribute towards the debate, she was constantly cut off. That's what it seems like, anyway. Stephen Flynn from the SNP, going back to the Euros, which kicks off tonight, of course, Scotland are taking on Germany. He made a comment about would he support England when Scotland weren't playing, and he said no, which has sparked fierce debate this morning. I hope all our host nations do well whenever they're in international tournaments. I'm English, of course, but it never seems to come back the same way. I don't have a problem with the Scots, but it seems like they have a problem with England.
Some people might, listen. Well, listen, stay with us. We've got loads still to come, but more importantly, we'll be speaking to Emma Webber. Now, she is the mother of Barnaby Webber. Barnaby was killed in Nottingham last year. Stay tuned, that is up next. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Low pressure firmly in charge today and over the next few days. Blustery showers, some brighter spells in between the downpours, but it is staying unsettled with low pressure sitting to the west of Scotland and various showery bands of rain sweeping around that low, combined with a gusty wind, that wind particularly notable around the southwest coast and the far north of Scotland, where there'll be some bands of more persistent rain at times. Otherwise, the downpours will be moving through and there'll be some brighter weather in between. And temperatures not as low as they have been, with those values returning closer to average, although not feeling particularly pleasant because of the frequent downpours and the gusty wind. So around the coast of Devon and Cornwall, 12 or 13 Celsius, frequent showers moving through. Brighter spells for a time later in the day for northern England, North Wales, so it's not a complete washout, but those showers really getting going across parts of Northern Ireland. And for central and northern Scotland in particular, we'll see more prolonged rain. So for some, it will rain for several hours. Others will see some decent drier spells as we end the day and go into the evening, but further wet weather sweeps through across the southwest into the early hours of Saturday. And again, we've got those persistent outbreaks of rain in the far north of Scotland. Otherwise, some clear spells about, but it's not going to be as cool overnight as it has been during recent nights because of the breeze and because we've got a slightly milder source of air compared with the northerlies that we saw earlier in the week. Nevertheless, low pressure in control on Saturday. Further showers, some thunderstorms and some more prolonged outbreaks of rain as well. A very blustery day and an unsettled weekend to come.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good morning, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Now, it's a year anniversary for the Nottingham attacks, which saw Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar stabbed repeatedly by Valdo Calacane as they walked home after a night out to celebrate the end of their exams.
School caretaker Ian Coates was also murdered as he made his way into work. And a year on, the families of the victims say they will continue to fight for justice and lasting change.
Well, joining us now is Barnaby's mum, Emma Webber, and lawyer acting on behalf of the bereaved families, Neil Hudgell. Right, Emma, thank you so much, and Neil, for coming in.
Morning, hi.
I'm so sorry for what happened. And I want to ask you, how do you even move forward after something like this? Because it must be terrifying and awful.
It's unfathomable and it's unimaginable. And sometimes, how do you even get out of bed? It's that difficult. But somehow you do. And I think it's parental instinct. I've got my son Charlie, I've got my husband David, and my friends and family, and you know, you've got to try and keep going. And there's all the old adages of put one foot in front of the other, get to the end of the day. That's all true. But what we didn't expect coming after this awful tragedy was all of the failings and the wrongdoings of various agencies, and that's just added another horrific layer of trauma. You know, but you know, we're a year on, wiser, and thank God we've got an offer of support from these guys, because we need to be able to hand it over properly to the people who really know what they're doing. We've just made a lot of noise, rightly so, and got this far. That's over. No pressure. So over to you.
Yeah. So Neil, the greatest sense of injustice you feel is the fact that Kalakane has gone to a mental institution and not serving a custodial sentence in prison. That's because of a number of reasons. I mean, you have a concern that, for example, he wasn't drug tested in the immediate aftermath of his attack, which meant that if he was found to be on drugs, he couldn't have claimed diminished responsibility. Is that right?
That's part of the story. I guess, you know, the law around diminished responsibility, manslaughter, murder, insanity, all those things is incredibly complex. I think one of the key issues here is that Emma and the families feel that they were an after-the-event thought when it came to the prosecution process. You know, victims' rights at the end of the queue. There was a rush, in many senses, for the experts to conclude that this wasn't a man with full intent and could not be guilty of murder. And their views were only really sought as a fait accompli, and as part of that, they've brought into the reckoning and thinking there that there are issues that ought to have been explored on a preemptive basis. So, for example, the whole history or the recent history around potential drug taking. This is a man who refused to give intimate samples at the police station, showed considerable elements of premeditation, and that's just but one strand of a whole raft of different things that have gone wrong both
the
before and after.
Yeah, the behaviour of the police officers themselves, making comments which I don't want to repeat.
No,
about
don't need to. It's disgusting.
Your children,
and the chief constable wouldn't let me address them privately. So I thought, I can't. There's things you can't let lie. You have to address things, and I hope it makes them think differently in the future. But that letter, where I wrote the open letter to those WhatsApp officers, is. You know, they're probably parents, most of them, right? You just think, just think before you do. I mean, the misconduct of officers, there's so much more to uncover. That we're deeply unhappy with the investigation. There's clear, massive failings and missed opportunities before the 13th of June, and that's unforgivable. They really do. 2 police forces have blood on their hands.
What's gone wrong with them for them to be so detached from humanity and empathy that they would say? Behave in that way.
I think you end up with a depersonalised system that certainly when it goes wrong, it goes very badly wrong. And I think there's a lack of professional curiosity very often within some of the public services now. And so we're talking about failings within institutions, but also between institutions. So no one seems to join the dots up. No one seems to speak within each other because, the real sad reality here is that if 2 police forces had spoken to each other, if police forces had spoken to mental health, that 3 wonderful lives wouldn't have been lost.
Emma, you and other families of the victims, you've become quite close over the last year. You've been fighting courageously together.
Yeah.
Can I ask if you've had a chance really to grieve for Barnaby?
Don't think so. I don't think so, and I think that the Amali Kumars and the Cokes would say the same, because we've had to do this. Well, we didn't have to do this, we had a choice, but, we're not going to go quietly into the good night when something wrong has happened. There's a right and there's a wrong, and even the Justice Minister said to us when we spoke to him, we were raising our concerns at the end of last year, he said, what's the rush? This
Calicane's not going anywhere. You know, this is his concern about the judicial system. So sorry, Alex Chalk, I'm, you know, naming you because you said it to us, and he said that the system's flawed. He's called for change to homicide. We don't deny Calicane's mentally unwell. Of course he is. But you said about the element of planning. This is somebody who apparently was in an extended psychosis. He managed to complete his 2-1 degree in mechanical engineering. Exactly. He had jobs. He had a flat. He got evicted from that. He caught trains. He took money out. He planned. He had weapons. He had weapons in that rucksack.
What should happen to him then? What should happen to him? Short of the death penalty, which I'm sorry, that's...
Oh, shit.
If you don't start me on that, because we know he did it, so there'll be no question.
He shouldn't have been out in the community, so that has to be explored, and lots of questions need to be answered. But there's an element, he knew what he was doing. Yeah. So just a hospital order, just being treated as a patient is not enough. There should be a penal punishment there. There's no punishment. That's a big P word that was missing through the whole thing. With a weak prosecution, we felt. But it's going to happen again. It is going to happen again because it's not just a one-off. You're hearing it over and over and over again. How many knife crime, how many violent, psychotic attacks have there been in this country? And they're escalating. And, you know, I hope that with the change to the law and bringing it to the fore and sharing our hideous pain, we might... There's one thing we can do in this world now is maybe make a bit of change.
We hope so.
I hope so.
Thank you very much. And also, Neil Hudgell, really good to talk to you both. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
That's all from us today. We're back next week. Up next is Tom and Emily. Good afternoon, Britain.
A huge afternoon of news ahead. Live events, not least, will be live in central London, where Nigel Farage is speaking at a press conference for the first time since Reform overtook the Conservatives in one poll.
And the Euros kicks off today. We'll be in Scotland and Germany with live updates. Stay with us.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're making this summer funner with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This Saturday, GB News invites you to witness the pageantry, the tradition and the unity. Join Ellie Costello and me, Andrew Pearce, in a celebration of His Majesty the King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour. Saturday at 10 a.m. on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 14th of June. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Nigel speaks.